Hi everyone, it's Emily and I'm back again with another 21 and Sensory podcast episode. On today's episode I have special guest Ella Willis. Ella is a 21-year-old Newcastle-based autism advocate who creates amazing and really informative educational videos on TikTok, where they have almost 120,000 followers. Ella is also a fab illustrator and shares work via Instagram and via an illustration Instagram as well, and I'll pop both the links to those in the show notes. So Ella, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Ella. So I live in Newcastle at the minute. I'm on a bit of a year out. I'm kind of just working part-time, making videos and trying to figure out where I want to take my life, I guess. On a bit of a break, but still having fun.
Good. That's a great little intro. And I saw you graduated this week as well. Congrats.
I did, yeah, thank you. I graduated yesterday. It was a bit weird because I couldn't go with my course because I was at work, so I had to kind of tag along with history, but it was the weather was lovely and they'd done campus up really nice, and we were really lucky because a lot of universities just haven't been doing graduations. So I got to turn up and put a robe on and get some nice pictures, and it did feel really special. It did.
That's nice. It is. I feel like, it would never have been the same if you did it online. Like you kind of, I don't know, there's something good about going out, obviously, to celebrate, but also having the robe on and everything like that. It just feels fancy.
It felt very professional and kind of, because this year's been so weird when I've just never been on campus for university. So to then be able to go on to campus kind of dressed up and see everybody, it made it feel more real because it hadn't felt real at all.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
That's really difficult. And what did you study?
I studied literature.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily a heavy subject kind of but you do lose a lot of motivation studying online. So
yeah, I bet. Just to keep the focus as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially, I'm assuming in your third year, did you have to write a dissertation as well?
I did, and luckily it came out. I did do quite well in it, but a lot of the feedback that I got was, if this had been in person and you'd had in-person support, you probably would have done far better. And it's so frustrating that the outcome could have been so different, but unfortunately it was unavoidable.
Oh, it sounds like you did your best considering the pandemic.
I mean, I was at the library from 8 o'clock in the morning, most mornings, just working solidly. So I would have been very disappointed if I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've got the summer. And did you say that you're having a kind of year off sort of?
Yeah, I'm taking a break because you don't realise that you study from especially in the UK, you study from being 4. And if you go into further education, you're studying for nearly 20 years of your life constantly. So it's going to be very weird to not have education starting in September. But I think it's going to be a needed break and a relief.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to have that separation. And like you say, you're just kind of in the system for so long that actually it's probably quite nice to have a break.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully I'll get myself a little job or...
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think... I'm assuming that was you done for education. That sounded like it kind of thing.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do a master's or anything.
I thought about it, but it was mainly just because it was there. It was just an idea to do. And I've got too many passions to need to kind of want to focus on something and spend that kind of money again and get myself into more debt for something that in a couple of years I might not want to do. And then to find that it might even be a hyperfixation would be a bad move to do a master's in. So we'll see.
That's good. It sounds like you've got your options open at least.
Yeah, even if it means it's a little bit chaotic because I don't know where I'm going, but I'm floating at the minute.
But you're still young. It's difficult, isn't it, to kind of know exactly what you want to do, and people change career paths all the time is what I think. So I'm trying to stay open to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had things that I've wanted to go into, but then when this online stuff started to kind of blow up, it's just sent me in a completely new direction. And now I'm I don't want to focus on one thing, because if this takes me somewhere else, I don't want to be stuck or feel like I'm having to make choices to cut something out of my life. So I'm just seeing where it takes me.
That's good. I feel like you've got the right I don't know, mindset in terms of like, you know, just
I hope so.
look, comes your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. So I definitely want to ask you about like all your online stuff and TikTok stuff, but I think maybe if we start with your diagnosis and then go on to that maybe. So
Yeah.
what, if you're happy to chat about it, what diagnoses do you have? And obviously I know you're autistic, and when did you get that diagnosis?
Well, I'm still waiting for my formal autism diagnosis because every county in the UK does it different, and I get preliminary assessments every six months with my assessment centre. And because they have a team of professionals that kind of deal with the entire county, they're just never available. I mean, that's why you have the wait list. And every time I go in, they talk to me and they're like, yeah, like you definitely are autistic, but unfortunately we're not the professionals to put that on paper for you. So I feel like I'm in limbo at the minute because I'm having it confirmed by professionals, but not officially. And it's so invalidating because I know that I am, they know that I am, everyone around me knows that I am, but I'm having to float about without it on paper. So getting support and feeling valid when I go to workplaces or things and say, look, I'm autistic and I need this support. I just have to kind of be like, I can't give you it on paper, but please believe me. And it can be very difficult, but...
That's crazy. You literally, all you're waiting for is a bit of paper.
Yeah, literally. And that's why I'm such an advocate for self-diagnosis, because it's such a privilege to be able to get a fast diagnosis, to even just have access to a diagnosis. Because, I mean, we're lucky in the UK. I say lucky, it's more fortunate to have a healthcare system that's somewhat free. In other countries, you know, America comes to mind, that it costs thousands just to get a diagnosis. So it's such a privilege. And I constantly say, you know your own brain. And far more than medical professionals, because you live with yourself and you have lived experiences. So I'm such an advocate for people self-diagnosing if they have had preliminary assessments and they've done the research, because you do just know yourself deep down. And I think it's such a challenge to have to navigate life kind of believing that you need a label when it takes so long to get one.
Exactly. And just the fact that everyone around you is telling you that yes, you're autistic, and you're like, yeah, I know. I realised it myself. Nobody came to me and said, oh, maybe you should look into this. It was something that I noticed in myself, and I think that has something to say for when it comes to self-diagnosis, that if you're so self-aware and whatever, then I don't think that you can challenge it, really. Yeah. Especially when you're actively researching and making sure that you're engaging with other people that are autistic and speaking about their lived experiences and how it relates to you. And yeah, it's such a difficult one because so many people don't agree with it, but I think self-diagnosis could benefit most people, because everybody has to go through the wait list to a certain extent. And when did you sort of come to the realisation yourself? Because you mentioned that it was kind of you kind of said it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, because I think it happened in stages where I had the thought, but I didn't pursue it. And then it was lockdown that made me go, this is a thing. So I think it was probably mid-2019. I went to London with some of my friends, and it was just so overwhelming, but nobody else was struggling. And it made me realise how I process things differently to other people. And then when lockdown hit and there was just a massive shift in routine, life was so different. I couldn't fathom it. And all of these things that I've been thinking about, how I didn't process things the same. I finally had the time to sit down and do the research and educate myself and really step back and kind of look at myself and think, this is who you are. This is what it relates to. And it's probably going to be healthy for you to kind of pursue it, especially going into my third year of uni. And like when I was doing my research, there were so many women who were you know, they were in their 40s and they were only just pursuing a diagnosis, and it made me think, okay, you need to do it now. Don't wait. Get some validation from some professionals and go from there. And I did.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Like, and I definitely like resonate with what you're saying about like when you see people who are in their like 40s, 50s, 60s, and like us in our like kind of 20s.
Yeah.
Like this is late diagnosed. Like 20s is late. Yeah. To be like, you know, halfway through your life in your 50s is like madness to then understand this about yourself. It must be like so frustrating but eye-opening at the same time kind of thing.
I do think it's definitely freeing. Like I feel like more like myself now than I ever have. And I do think it's helped me find myself, because it just relates to everything from my life and I didn't realise. It's insane how you go beyond stereotypes of what you see in yourself, and then you realise it links to everything. Everything that I do is because my brain processes things differently, and it is fascinating. It really is.
Definitely, especially when you have the time to like research into it and stuff, and you just realise how much, I don't know, like the brain does. And just processing and stuff like that. And it is, you can kind of fall into a deep hole of internet on researching autism.
Yeah, definitely.
So what kind of led, kind of from you sort of realising this about yourself, what sort of led to your kind of online presence? Was autism something you kind of talked about on your social media at all?
I didn't really. I shared kind of information and stuff, but I'd never openly discussed it, because it's such a scary thing to kind of admit to people when you know that people have preconceptions of it. But what started my online thing was actually Sia's film, and I think it's so funny that my platform is basically from her, even though it's such a toxic thing.
Okay.
When Sia released the film Music about it was about an autistic child, and it was just horrendous. It really was. It was such an awful thing to watch. And I was like, I need to talk about this, because nobody's talking about it in a way, they've seen it and they want to discuss what's wrong with it. So I made a series of videos called I Watched Sia's Film So You Don't Have To. And they just blew up. And I went from having a couple of hundred followers on TikTok to like 20,000 in a week.
In a week?
Yeah, it was crazy. I hit 10k and I thought, okay, it's going to stop now. And then within a matter of days, I was at 20, and I just thought, Jesus. Wow. And it just spurred me to keep going, because one of the most validating comments I get is like, you vocalize and kind of articulate the way that my brain feels but can't say it out loud. And I really appreciate when people say things like that, because I struggle with language so much. So it is lovely to hear people kind of say that I help them understand their brain a bit more and put it into words. And so I kept going, because I thought if this is, it's what I needed. I needed someone to vocalize things. So I thought if I can be that for someone else, then I'll keep going. And I did. And it's grew and just keeps going.
Like you're almost at 120k.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, and the opportunities and the doors that it opens, and kind of the friends that I've met through it, it is wonderful. It really is.
And I love that you realised it was something that you needed to see, and that you were like, right, I'm just, I need to see this sort of thing. So the fact that you're making it is amazing.
I appreciate like online advocates and educators so much, because I just think that there's such an accessible kind of true, honest way of learning, because it's like you get direct insight into someone's lived experience and the way that they speak about it. And I just think it's the best way of learning is from people, rather than kind of professionals or these like books that are churned out that weren't even written from people from them communities. I just think it's the best way to learn. I do.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to find someone that you can relate to online. And
100%.
I think also of like, different like genders and races and stuff like that, and to just find like someone who's just like you, who's also like, potentially late diagnosed, or like, I love how you like talk about your experiences at like uni, like being autistic and stuff like that. It's like, someone else gets it.
And I hands down would say that I know more about certain things and movements and people because of the internet. And yes, it's a toxic place, but I wouldn't know half the things, or 3/4 or almost all of the things that I know, if it wasn't for people talking online and making infographics and videos.
I really like your infographics as well that you've like started doing on your Instagram. Like, it's really interesting to see like your sunflower lanyard one went like crazy.
Massive. I was like, it's going to slow down. Every time it hit another 1,000, I was like, that's it now. And now it's at 14,000, and it's just like 100,000 people have seen it when I go on the like the analytics, and it's just crazy. Because I always thought like my following, it's just going to be condensed to TikTok because whatever. But it's starting to move over, and it's very strange, but yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Do you find like, as someone as well who occasionally makes videos but also draws, like, do you find it hard to like juggle in terms of like what to make next and like,
Definitely. And it's like I constantly say, next week you'll be able to do this, but then something else comes along and I'm busy, and it's really difficult because there's certain things that you can articulate in a video that you can't necessarily put down on paper or draw, and it's frustrating and difficult to try and find the balance or the line between them, or kind of what would work better in an infographic or what would work better with a video. And it's just because I always want to make sure that they're informative and engaging, and it's difficult because I do enjoy doing them, but certain things are so time consuming.
Yes.
And then I lose motivation, and I do enjoy them though. I really do.
It's fun. It's definitely like, and it's nice to see the reaction, but I think sometimes people don't realise the sheer amount of like brain power that goes into like drawing something, and then you're like, now I need to make it into like a digital drawing. Definitely. It's a faff, but it's worth it. It is worth it. I'm not saying, don't. It's just juggling like, and do you find like you kind of want to put sort of like, not constantly churn out content, but have like a kind of flow of stuff across social media? I find that quite difficult to juggle.
Yeah, definitely. Like I didn't realise, but I hadn't posted on my illustration page since March. And then I posted one a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought, how have I just forgotten about it? But my brain can't process multiple massive things at the same time. So I had to have the break, and it makes me panic because I'm like, people are going to forget that it's a thing, and then it's going to be gone, and I can't bring it back to life. And even when I don't post on TikTok for a day, I'm like, oh my God, my followers are just going to leave me. And it's not that it's the most important thing in my life. It's just when you've worked on something for a long time and poured so much energy into it, you want to make it a lasting, sustainable thing. But it does take up so much energy.
Yeah. And I get what you mean about that fear of like, if I don't post for like a week or two, like people are going to forget I exist. And it's like,
It really taps into like imposter syndrome as well. Because I just think that when I don't post, I'm like, people have realised that I'm a fake, and I just perform. I'm not a person. And people are just going to forget about me because they realise I don't care, and I'm just a fake and a fraud. And just sends me into a spiral. It really does.
And the thing is, we're almost putting this pressure on ourselves. I think other people aren't like, she hasn't posted.
Because like I don't do that with other creators. I don't notice that one creator hasn't posted for a day. So they definitely don't think that about me. But you're just so hyper aware of yourself, and it makes me panic.
I think also just social media in general, like you compare yourself to other people and their like output, which is a really dangerous thing to do because you don't know their life compared to yours and what you've got going on. So
definitely.
I get you. It is stressful. So special interests, something you mentioned earlier. I'd love to know what your special interests are. Like, I know it's something you like do like videos like based on and stuff like that, but just info dump on me. What are your special interests?
My main ones are Harry Potter. I've had a love for Harry Potter since I was very young. I just find it very, very comforting. And I love to learn facts about it. And another special interest that I have is I love to collect Doc Martens, the shoes. They're just, I don't know why, I'm just obsessed with them. They make me very happy. And I think a current one is also ducks, which I love because so many people just send me duck content like constantly. People who have got ducks, or they see people online that have got them, and I just get sent them all of the time. Like some people, I get sent things that are like duck related. It's very exciting. What are my other special interests? I do have loads and loads, and it's hard to pinpoint them sometimes, but it's mainly Harry Potter things in that kind of realm. I like to collect certain things. I get excited. I always find that I get excited about things in a way that a lot of people just don't, and it's something that's always been a bit weird for people, which I didn't realise was an autistic thing, but it is. I just get super excited about so many different things. Anything duck related, I just get like hugely excited about. And I've gone through many special interests in my life, like many, because it started off with the Hunger Games, but then that transitioned into Harry Potter. Okay. And I went through many animal special interests, because I used to have rabbits growing up, and everything was rabbit related, everything. My room was decorated. I just loved it. I think there's something to be said about autistic people and special interests and the happiness that comes from it. Because I think people just assume that it's unhealthy obsession, but I don't think it is. I think everybody should have intense special interests because they bring so much happiness to you.
Yeah, and I don't know. It gets you something to get like passionate about and lose yourself in, which I think everyone needs to some extent.
Definitely. And I think the only reason it's viewed as so weird is because it's not normal to non-autistic people or neurotypical people, that the way that we express our emotions, it's viewed as very negatively. So it is assumed to be unhealthy obsession when it really just isn't. It's just a different way of expressing your love for something. And
I love that people are like providing you with like constant content on
it's
that's excellent.
Wonderful. Someone messaged me the other day and was like, I have ducks and one of them's had babies and I've called one of them Ella. I was like, that's crazy.
Oh my God.
The impact, like that is baffling to me, but so wonderful.
That is such a dream to have a duck named after yourself.
I know. I love it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how many Doc Martens do you have, just out of interest?
I'm currently at 12. I've had more within my lifetime, but I've gotten rid of some that are kind of just not my style anymore. But yeah, they will keep growing because I can't stop myself. And I don't feel like myself when I don't wear them. I really don't. They're like, if I don't have a pair of Doc Martens on my feet, if I'm wearing something else, I don't feel like me.
It's just part of your...
It's my brand.
Yeah, your brand, exactly.
It's my brand.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. I love, like, I always ask like my guests about their special interests because I'm just fascinated to see what people like love to deep dive into and just are passionate about, and like you can really like tell through the way you're like talking about things, like how
the passion that I just love to see how excited it makes people when they talk about their special interest, especially when you find someone with the same special interest as you and you can just go on like massive rants and you know sat there both like flapping with excitement because you're just so passionate about the same thing.
And also as like someone who's autistic, like it gives you something to like talk about and like the conversation will flow, whereas like small talk you're just like
There's nothing worse than getting excited about something in front of someone and them either making you feel bad for being excited, them not sharing the same excitement, or them kind of shaming you. There is nothing worse. It's so disheartening. It really is.
No, definitely. I definitely agree. Why do people be like that?
I know.
It's so annoying. I was going to ask you as well. I wanted to ask you about your hair, which sounds like a weird thing to ask a guest about, but there is context behind this.
Yes.
So when did you decide that you A, wanted to shave your hair, and that B, you could potentially tie that in with some fundraising?
I've actually, I'd always wanted to shave my head. It was just something I'd always wanted to do. And I didn't realise it was because it was a sensory issue for me, but I just always wanted rid of it. And I had cut my hair short to like a pixie cut level before and then grew it back out. But I was just like, I really want to do this because I just always thought it was fun and cool. And I do think it probably ties in with when I started realising things about my gender and how I'd only really hung on to my hair because it was this typical feature of like femininity. And I felt like I was having to conform to that, which is just something I don't do anymore. And I think getting rid of my hair has just helped me so much with that. But I'd wanted to do it, and then my TikTok started to blow up, and I thought, this is something, if I do it as a fundraiser, I do actually have the platform to raise quite a lot of money for this. And it was still when I probably only had, I don't even know if I'd hit 50k by then when I shaved my head. Because when I shaved my head and I started doing like hair videos, my videos blew up even more because I reached a different kind of audience. And autism charities are so hard to find because there's so many toxic ones. And when you think that you found a good one, you realise that they got into like some kind of scandal and then they've hurt a bunch of people, and it's just so awful because there's so many that are just they don't have any good intentions at all. But that I found a charity that's actually based in my hometown that I didn't know was a thing. And I went on their website, and that's how I always like gauge whether a charity is good or not, is by the language that they use. And often I'd go on websites and it'd be like, oh, there's no cure for autism yet. And I'd be like, I'm not working with you. I'm not fundraising for someone that thinks that we need a cure. And I went on the Northeast Autism Society's website, and they were talking about how they wanted to help people through their university experience because the support often isn't there. And how they wanted to provide for people that didn't necessarily have the diagnosis yet. And I thought they really are advocating for the stuff that like resonates with me. And I just thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to fundraise for my local autistic charity, and it's going to be great. And it really was. I did it on a live stream, and I got like 300 people watching, which for a live stream is decent when you don't have that big of a following. Because I don't think a lot of people understand that the way that live streams work, you don't just get all of your followers watching. It's quite difficult to get quite a big watch count on a live stream. So that was crazy. And I really enjoyed it, and I do not regret it. I do not regret shaving my head. The one thing that people ask me as well is, so when are you growing it out? And the shock on their face when I say, well, I'm not. Like I'm keeping it like this. And I didn't realise it was a sensory issue, which has been fascinating because I've been making videos on that as well. And so many people have gone, I've shaved my head because of you. Oh, wow. And again, it's so weird to see like the kind of impact that I can have. But I now have a new canvas to paint on and kind of enjoy, and it is lovely. And the reaction that I get when I kind of leave the house and people are like, oh my God, your hair is so cool.
That's nice. Like, I think there's like this misconception about like, if people like shave their head for charity, that it's like they didn't really want to do it and it will grow back. But actually it's not always the case. Like sometimes it's something you do want to do and you want to keep, and you want to, not necessarily grow it out, and you want to experiment like you have with all the different like colours and stuff like that, which is really cool. Like, and just, it's really interesting the way you said that it's definitely like a sensory thing, but it's also like impacted how you kind of, see yourself and, like gender wise and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Not one day has gone by where I've gone, I regret doing this, or I wish I had hair. I mean, I see people doing like hair tutorials and I'm like, it would be fun if I'd be able to do that. But I don't want my hair back. I think I do. I feel far more like myself now than I ever have. And I think it's because I've cut away this thing that I felt like I was conforming to, because I used to be able to sit on my hair. Growing up, I had like the longest hair in my school. It was insane. I was known for having for long hair, but now I'm known for having no hair. And I just feel far more like myself, and I love it. And
that's great.
It's very affirming to have it.
Yeah. And do you find like sensory wise, like as someone who also has like long hair, do you find like having much shorter hair like more easier to like manage, like hygiene wise, and like I guess it's less effort?
I think, my hair would literally give me meltdowns, and I didn't even realize until it was gone that that's what it was doing. Like when the wind would be blowing and it would be getting in my face and I couldn't keep control of it, that would just send me into a meltdown. Or when it was too hot and it was sticky, or when I would get caught in things, it would just it was horrible. And it wasn't until it was gone that I realized that it was such a relief. And I think that's things it comes with a lot of things, not just my hair, but like cutting certain things out of your life that you didn't realize were a problem until they're gone. Yeah. But yeah, I'm having fun with it. It's very exciting, and my followers seem to love following the journey of what I'm going to do with my hair next.
I think that's nice though, because you've almost like created a storyline around it that you can like, I don't know, document in terms of like what you do with it color wise, and just like the reactions you get to it. Like that's quite an interesting thing as well. People like, I remember I posted a video and I'd redone my hair, but I hadn't done it on a live stream, and people were so annoyed at me. They were like, you didn't show us, and now we're having to watch your videos without knowing that you've changed your hair. So every time I do my hair now, I try and live stream it, because people actually do get very disappointed. Oh wow, funny. It's a real like liability now, like you have to document.
Yeah. It's quite funny.
I love how invested people are as well. Like that's really nice.
That's one thing that shocks me all of the time, is how invested people have become in my life. It's lovely, but it's very odd that that's me. And I remember the first time I got recognised when I was out and about, and it was the weirdest thing.
Oh really?
And now it happens so often, and it's so weird. It's just so weird. I love it. But it's like I never know how to react.
Yeah. And do you find like almost like because you're online, people think maybe they know you and your life more than actually?
Yeah. And it is lovely, because most people are very, very sweet, and they're very grateful for my content. And there are certain people that like I know live in my local area now that I know watch my videos, and we don't necessarily talk, but we wave at each other in the street because I know who they are now, because they've introduced themselves, and it's nice. It really is. And I think especially with the kind of content that I make, I know that the people that watch my videos are probably a certain type of person. So I always appreciate when people speak to me, and everyone's always so lovely.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And also, just to go back to your hair briefly, you raised over £350 doing that.
I did, yeah.
There was that, charity aspect to it as well, not just all this like fab content. Like that's a lot of money.
They emailed me the other day actually, and they sent me like a certificate. Because people have still been donating to it now, like just trickling through kind of. I could probably re-promote it, to be fair. But they sent me a certificate, and they were saying how appreciative they were of it, and I wasn't expecting that at all, which was really sweet. So I'm glad it went to a charity that was local and also very small, and they probably had an impact with the people that I might even pass on the street when I go home, which is nice.
But also the fact that, like, before kind of searching on the internet and stuff, you didn't know that this was in your local area. It kind of says something, doesn't it?
Their base is literally over a field next to my house.
Oh, wow.
That's where they're based, and I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah. Next
to my local school, so they've probably got connections with them. It just felt right. When I found them, it felt right.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad, like, it's nice to see it go into something local.
Yeah,
like, not
definitely.
That a national charity isn't as worthy, but, to see it make an impact in your own community is a nice thing.
Yeah.
We talked about your Instagram a little bit, didn't we? And your illustration. Like, the reason I asked you what you were studying at university, because I wasn't sure if you studied illustration or not.
No, it's just a hobby.
Just hobby.
I started doing it in lockdown because I have an iPad and I bought an Apple Pencil, and I thought I'm just going to draw, because I always studied art when I was in school, and it was always something I was passionate about, and I've always been very, very creative, and I just needed a new outlet, and I just started posting them, and quite a lot of my friends run small businesses, and they were like, you need to get on this, you need to start selling things, because it's a great way to make money for something that you're passionate about. So I did, and it did really well. But yeah, it was mainly just a hobby, but I am enjoying doing it. I did have to take a break, but it's so hard to stay passionate about something when you do turn it into a business, because you kind of have to start thinking about a lot of other things. Yeah, that zaps your passion a little bit. But I think for a long time I forced myself to do things that I thought other people would like, rather than what I like too. So I think I'm going to start focusing on, that's why, like, one of my recent illustrations, it says queer as hell. And previously I'd done illustrations that were very kind of palatable and plain and stuff. I loved them, but I was definitely just tapping into what I thought would sell rather than what I enjoy. So I want to focus on that more, because I do think it'll keep my passion alive.
I get you.
And now that I've got a bit of a following as well, I'm hoping that, because the majority of the people that buy from my shop are people that follow me, and they leave me lovely little messages being like, I bought from your shop because I want to support you, because you've helped me so much.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and I sell weekly planners as well, and I think I might start working on them more in terms of how to use them for autistic brains and kind of neurodiverse brains, because a lot of people that buy them are like, I bought this because I need structure in my life, and I think this is a great way of getting that. So I think I might try and tap into the types of people that follow me and make things specifically tailored to that. I think that might be exciting and fun.
That'd be really interesting. Like, I love the 70s vibe one that you have. It's so cute.
I do think I will keep that. I think that's probably going to be a staple in my shop, I think.
Oh, that's good. I'll put the link below to your little Etsy as well. But you've got the colouring sheets as well. It's nice that you've got a little range at the moment.
Yeah, I do. I forgot about them, because I don't keep them constantly stocked up. I just print them to order.
Okay.
But yeah, because I always find colouring in so therapeutic.
Yes.
I think it blew up a couple of years ago. It was adult colouring pages. But it's wonderful. I do like colouring in.
Oh, it is nice. And it's nice that you can, I don't know, have something that's more affordable, as well as different options, because I feel I don't know, when you look at YouTubers or TikTokers, their merchandise is so expensive. It's totally so unachievable.
Yeah, and when you see young people buying it and stuff, I just think, oh my god, you've been conned, because it's just cheap hoodies with their name on or something. And I think people are far more inclined to want to buy something that you've poured so much energy into, but also keeping it affordable. And small businesses are hard to run. They're they take up so much energy. It's insane.
And just working out postage and stuff like that puts me off it completely. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I've done a couple of kind of commercially things where I've been working with certain charities and stuff. And they were asking for invoices and stuff, and I was, oh my god, I've never done this before. This feels too professional for me. But also very exciting. I do like when I can do commissions and things like that, and people recognise and kind of reach out and want things doing, which is lovely.
I do find some companies as well, when they reach out, almost think once you start working with them, they almost forget you're autistic, and you're no, this stuff does not come naturally to me. I might be looking like I'm coping, but I don't know how to do the maths on this, or invoices and stuff like that, or finance. It's no, I'm still autistic. The one thing that I struggle with when it comes to working with people is the fact that I ask so many questions, and it's not because I don't understand. It's just sometimes I need clarity. I know what I'm doing. And me asking questions isn't being I don't know what I'm doing, please help me. It's, I know what I'm doing, but I need you to confirm with me just in case I'm not.
because the thought of doing something and then having to redo it or doing it wrong or not pleasing someone is very scary to me. And there's been so many times where I've started a new job or I'll be doing something at work and I'm like, I'm going to have to disclose to this person that I'm autistic because I can't cope with this. And I'm like, hang on a minute. No, I don't have to disclose anything. Yeah. It should be a right in a workplace or with anything that you get accommodations that you need, regardless of what you struggle with. Yeah. I've had to stop myself from sending so many emails being like, hi, I'm autistic, but I can do my job.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm qualified. Like, you know, I have this experience, but I am also autistic, so please bear that in mind. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't have to.
There's definitely been a couple of times where I've applied for certain jobs where I can tell that the company is very, very accommodating, just purely from the application process and the way that they speak to you and the way that they don't wait for you to say, oh, by the way, I need this. They're like, tell us what you need because we want to provide for you. And that's always comforting because I think it's so difficult, especially for autistic people, to kind of go to people and disclose that because of preconceptions, but also it's very difficult a lot of the time for autistic people to kind of be vulnerable and admit things like that. So I always appreciate when people come to you first and are kind of like, let us know what you need. It's very helpful.
It makes it less scary as well because, like, I found, like, just like after I got my diagnosis, like, actually it felt like quite a private thing for a while, that I was a bit like, I don't want to, like, shout this, like, I'm coming to terms with it. So to, you know, on a, like, interview form, it's say, like, you know, what accommodations would you like? You're like, yes, I can fill this in.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I agree with that. It's sometimes you need time to process it within yourself before disclosing it to other people.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
especially people that you're close to, because it can be difficult for them to kind of not perceive you in a different way, but it is giving them a new element of yourself that they've never seen before. Like telling your parents, like, because obviously for a lot of people it's their parents that kind of notice it in themselves, whereas I noticed it in myself, and then I had to kind of be like, oh, by the way, mum, by the way, dad, I'm autistic, and I struggled to know what to say. Because I felt like they were going to not view me differently, but I guess I didn't want them to feel bad for not realising because they were the people that brought me up.
Yeah.
But it's weird because I've been talking about this a lot, how if you are an only child or you have siblings that are autistic, like that's your parents, that's the only norm that they know. So my mum probably wouldn't notice because, you know, I'm her norm as a child. And then my dad wouldn't notice because his only other child is autistic too. So I think we need to break down the idea that people will learn to notice it in themselves rather than their parents, because if I'd waited for my parents to realise, I would still think I was neurotypical now.
And like on the flip side of that, like I remember because I took my mum in with me to my diagnosis, and she was like, well, why didn't I spot this sooner? It's like, well, hang on, it's not your, you know, as my mum, I don't want you to feel guilty. It's not
the lack of education for people just in general, because there should be, you just should be aware of things like this, and it's not the job of autistic people to educate other people on things like that. And the only things that people do seem to know are stereotypes, and not everybody fits into them. And
I feel
it's
like
so
that
difficult.
could be a whole podcast episode on its own, just
literally. Literally. And when I do speak to my mum about things, she's like, oh yeah, I do notice it now, like I see it, I understand. But it's only because I've opened up to her and explained. And it's actually something I'm massively worried about with my diagnosis, is when they speak to my parents about what I was like as a child, because to them I was just an average child. I think I'll probably have to prep them on
if you were an only child as well, they had nothing to compare your growth to, kind of thing. And
I wasn't like your stereotypical autistic child growing up, you know, the stereotype of you don't speak, or you're really bad in school, or you've got no social skills, which is obviously a massive stereotype and not the truth for most people. But I was very, very advanced as a child, which will possibly hinder me in getting a diagnosis, because it's just, but then again, it's the lack of education between what it's like for men and women, or people that have been conditioned and brought up as male and female. It presents differently.
Yeah, definitely.
Which the research just still isn't there for.
Yeah. It's frustrating, but I think, you know, even just like seeing all these great like people on TikTok who are just like talking about it, like it's not just coming from like organizations anymore. Like you're actually hearing the experiences of actual people. Is like, I love having that sense of community online.
Definitely. And it feels far more organic and truthful. And it's weird to me, because I think TikTok's become a form of therapy for me. Like not in a traditional sense, but when things happen or I think about things, I just kind of pick up my phone and I record, and it's a way of venting my feelings. But then I also get validation from it, because people comment and kind of be like, oh, I feel this too, or I relate to this, or this has really helped me. And it's so strange. Like I was writing an article the other day for someone that was like, and one of the questions that they asked was kind of, what's TikTok done for you? And in the least dramatic way possible, I think it's helped me find myself, and I feel far more like myself than I ever have. And to some people that probably sounds so dramatic, because it's just a little app, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like I've done more growth in the past couple of months than I ever have. And it's probably because I've created this community of people that just, they help me feel valid and heard and seen, and it's just helped me realise so much about myself. That's and now great. I know what I need from life, and it's very helpful.
I always think, like, I always said, like, once you realise that you might be autistic and you start to kind of think more about it, and you think like, oh, now I know, like the world will change. And actually it doesn't, but you can change it for yourself in little ways. And, you know, sharing your stuff online and things like that. It's these little kind of ways of realising what works for you, but also that other people can relate. Just to know that you're not alone is a lovely feeling. Definitely.
And like, again, it comes back to like, once you notice it, you see it in kind of everything that you do. And the way that it has followed you around your life, you just didn't necessarily notice. It's very fascinating.
Have you found that a lot? Like, you've like realised like, oh, I do this because, or, oh, I, you know, process this like this, or
all of the time. And I've always had like strange little quirks or like things that I do differently to other people. And I just didn't ever relate it back to being autistic. Like, I've always been very dramatic. My facial expressions have always been over the top, and I've always hyperfixated on things, or I'm very much a people pleaser. And it does come back to all of the things that I've been conditioned to feel, but my brain has always pushed against, because it's just not how it works. And it, like, again, like facial expressions, I didn't realise that was something that's linked to autism, but it definitely is, that they don't always relate to my emotions. But I'm very dramatic about my emotions, because I don't necessarily, it's not that I don't have a filter, it's just, it's the way that my body does things. And like, when you unmask, eventually it's kind of, it just all floods out. When you're in a safe space, you do just let go. And it's lovely.
That's great. And I mean, like, things like the facial expression, like, sort of thing you're talking about, like, because I feel like you mentioned you do like a lot of kind of like drama and stuff like that. Is that something that like really, like, because you're meant to be quite like, you know, like clear on stage with expressions and stuff like that, aren't you? Like, does that play into that and stuff?
There's definitely a correlation between being autistic and being in theatre. There's quite a lot of people in theatre that are autistic, and I think it comes back to the fact that most of us are very good actors because we mask all the time. But I do think it helps, because I do tap into, it's weird because it's a stereotype that you don't understand your emotions, but it's not necessarily that I don't understand them, because I know what they are. It's just kind of the processing of them. And I think it helps when it comes to acting and theatre. is that you're so hyper aware of emotions that you know exactly what to do when you're trying to portray a certain emotion and character and stuff. And it's quite freeing to embody a completely different role and kind of step outside of pretending to be a certain person off stage. I've always found theatre very freeing, and it's something I want to go into. It's something that I want to keep in my life because it's probably one of my biggest special interests. I've just not realised because it's just always been in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I will be continuing because I think it's wonderful. And I've now realised I prefer backstage work and management side of things.
Oh, really?
So I was the president of Newcastle University's Theatre Society while I was in third year. And it just opened up my eyes to all the backstage stuff. And I was like, I prefer this. I really do. And it's so fun to see things kind of come about and be created and be proud of the people on the stage and look at them and think, I had a part in that. And
yeah,
it's fabulous. It really is.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear that you've had like both experiences, like on stage and behind it. And
yeah, I was so adamant that I was an on-stage person. And then in 2020, I directed a play with the society. And I was just, I love this. I love being the manager and the kind of the person that kind of glues things together. And I was like, I'm good at it. So then I ran for president. It was such a privilege to kind of be elected to that role. And just seeing all the different productions and stuff that I oversee, it's just fabulous. It really is.
Oh, that's great. Like, it's really interesting to hear, like, also like all about your like special interests and stuff like that. And it like the stuff you don't realise are just like a continuing like thing in the background.
Yeah.
Like, theatre and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Like, you just don't realise.
I can't imagine my life without it, and it's definitely because it's a special interest. Because if you took any of my special interests away, I'd be absolutely heartbroken. And I think that one in particular would crush me because the community that you get from that kind of workspace is amazing. My university experience would not have been the same. I probably would have dropped out in first year if I didn't have it because it's just so special.
That's amazing then that it really did make your university experience.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping to try and continue that. I'm going to try and work in some theatres in Newcastle and stay in touch with the society because it still means a lot to me. It was literally my child. I adore it, really, really do.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. Like, it's so clear to me like how passionate you are about so many different things, and like you must have been juggling a lot like the past few years.
Sometimes I sit back and I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? I really do. I do manage, and I would never take anything on that I didn't feel like I could. Yeah. Because in first year I had like a part-time job as well while I was studying, while I was in the society and all the things like that. And it was crazy. And I've noticed that if you're passionate about it and if you love it, it makes it far easier. Yeah. So like juggling illustration and university and the society, it's far easier when you love it. It really is. And
it doesn't feel like a job, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the feeling that made me realise I want to continue this in my life because it wasn't a chore. It wasn't... I mean, there were difficult and trying times, but that comes with anything. Yeah. But it felt... Because I felt more positive about it than I did negatively, I thought, this is something I need in my life because it definitely sustains my happiness.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's really nice to hear. I can't believe we've almost been talking for an hour. I always do this. I just don't realise the time. Did you want to mention where people can follow you? Because I think that's important.
Yeah. So obviously my main following is my TikTok, which is, I don't know why I've got a different handle for TikTok. I think it's because when I made my account, I didn't want anybody to follow me. I wanted to hide it. So my TikTok is Ella W. Okay. And everything else is just _ Ella Willis. Right. Yeah, I think I'm definitely trying to promote my Instagram a bit more in terms of infographics. Yeah. And I think I might try and seep that over into my illustration page to become a little bit more educational.
Yep.
And I think TikTok side of things, I think I'm going to try and become a little bit more structured with my videos and stuff. So that might be an exciting thing to be following.
Okay. Ooh, interesting.
And I do believe I will be starting a YouTube within the next month.
Ooh.
Which is scary but exciting and fun.
Oh, that is so exciting.
Yeah, there's so many people have asked for it because they're just like, we want more of your content, but we only get 60 seconds on TikTok.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I'm going to be branching out into, I think.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Proper long form video, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's so many things I could just talk for hours about. So yeah.
Fab. I will put all those links that you mentioned in the show notes, and I'll pop your YouTube in when that happens. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your time to chat to me.
Thank you for having me.